Hello, friends. Welcome back. I don't know why I'm holding the microphone like that. I'll let go of it. To the 7.32D. I think that's it, but they can edit the. Philip can put the right thing on there if that's not right. Tier list for position 4. And let's just get right into it because I don't want to waste your time. So, D tier, we have Shadow Demon. I've seen a few people playing this one, pros playing this one. So it's not bad. In fact, actually, we'll talk about the shit tier first because as you can see, that's not a glitch. There is nothing in it. I didn't feel like there was actually anything that was their main role was 4 position, and they were so bad that I would consider them shit tier. Obviously, you can say Anti-Mage is a shit tier position 4, but that's cheating because position 4 is not his main role. So there's actually no shit tier 4s in my opinion right now. Shadow Demon, you know, his new ability is weird. You can put it on your ally and make them like kind of blade mail to the enemy team, or you can put it on the enemies and the enemies take more damage around them. It's fucking weird. I don't know. If you know how this works and you can figure it out, maybe, and if there's some combo with it, it's sick. But for right now, it feels like Shadow Demon is a bit of a liability until he gets his ultimate breaking and getting 3 charges of it, in which case he becomes very broken. But getting to that point, it feels like you're just too much of a burden on your team. Speaking of burdens, Pudge, position 4. Well, Hook does very good damage. It's pure damage, and the mana cost is quite low for how much damage it does. His base damage is incredibly high, so I don't want to consider this hero to be shit tier. That's not fair given the fact that these things are obviously good. But with that being said, the Aghanim Scepter Pudge playing as a carry is definitely way better than playing it as a 4 and playing around the Hook. But still, you know, a Pudge player is going to make it work. It's decent. The hero's good. So he's D tier. He's not amazing, but he's D tier. Grimstroke. So I have 2 things to say to you if you play Grimstroke. Number 1, what's wrong with you? Number 2, I would play with a friend. This hero, it feels like the tier probably goes up 1 or 2 if you're playing with a buddy in duo queue, because Ink Swelling a random guy, they don't know what that ability even does. And pressing Ult, Soulbind, people are not going to really play around that either. If there's a Doom on your team, he's going to Doom people before Grimstroke even presses his R. He's not even thinking about your hero. So Grimstroke feels like just not that good for pubs. I feel like, you know, if you're a competitive player, you're playing in the Reddit Dota 2 League or Open Qualifiers or whatever the hell you're doing, Grimstroke's probably better if you're duo queuing. But I didn't feel like for pub win rate, it's, you know, he's got like a 40% win rate. Lion. So this hero I don't think has recovered since they nerfed the range on his Q. I think it also doesn't help that this patch is not really about picking people off in side lanes, and that's kind of what Lion does. He runs around, you know, hexes somebody and chain stuns them. Not only is it harder for him to do that because his Q is lower range, but people are getting pipe and 5-manning. So Lion's not really good at dealing with that, and the changes to his Ag Shard and the fact that his suck makes him, number 1, they buffed it quite a few times, but then also it makes him magic immune. It's just not been enough to make the hero viable. Not yet. Okay, we have the C tier, which there's a lot of these, as you can see. Bounty Hunter. I think this hero, like, if you can get it out of the laning stage, has been fairly good for a few patches now. The Aghanim Scepter applying his Janata means that you steal a shitload of gold and you do a shitload of damage, and it's kind of this, like, you know, overtime damage dealer in the fight that is just an eventual nuisance and will kill your entire team. But getting to that point is very hard. Now it's a little bit easier because his slow, or his invis, which applies to slow, now also applies an attack speed slow. And people were already getting this before to run at people in lane with Orb of Venom and slow them and kill them. And now it's more of a trading ability because if they turn and right-click you, they right-click you slower because there's an attack speed slow. So BH is less useless in lane and was already good outside of lane. Phoenix. So Fire Spirits at level 4 has 100% uptime, which is incredible. That's what the Aghanim Shard used to do, and people would go for that, and people were like, dude, this Aghanim Shard is so broken. So yeah, now he just has that built in, or she, because I guess she lays eggs. So yeah, she, Phoenix. I mean, Sunray has been a super solid ability in Dota. Like, this has been one of the main reasons people pick Phoenix in general. I do feel like there's decent egg killers, and probably with the spot that Phoenix is in right now, she would be a much higher tier hero if there weren't a lot of really good egg killers. But even with that being the case, Phoenix is still really solid. Skywrath Mage. I think this hero in a vacuum is actually quite good. It's just that if you don't have combos with it, if you don't have a Legion, if you don't have a Sand King, then it feels like Skywrath Mage can be a liability. Like, Sky has one of the most insane potential late games in the game. If you get Shield of the Scion, which is the Ag Shard, and you ult 2 groupings of units with the Aghanim Scepter, this hero can legit get like a plus 1,000 int. It's fucking crazy. But to get to that point, number one, that's kind of impractical to ult that many units at once. But you can get a Sheep Stick, and you can still full to 0 most cores in the game, which is very good. But you can't farm at all, and the hero just feeds. So you need a hero to run around with and get kills, which is like Legion or Sand King, and those heroes are not always in the game. Weaver, I didn't feel like it was fair to put this hero in D tier, even though it's not getting picked up that much right now. I don't feel like it's bad. I remember it might have been at one of the majors this year, but Weaver did see some play when teams wanted to flex it into the other positions as well. And I feel like if that happened, then pubs would start copying that, and Weaver would look good again. I don't think Weaver's a bad hero. I think it's a lot harder to play in the laning stage ever since the Sakuchi nerfs, and ever since the nerfs to the bugs, where you can now kill them in 2 shots until level 3. That's definitely worse than OP Weaver before, but Weaver's still good, and Weaver still scales amazingly, especially as a support, getting the Aghanim Scepter and Ether Lens and upgraded Urn and these different items. Like, Weaver's decent. Chen, this hero's in here because I think Chen is just a very good hero. Getting a super early mechanism, grouping up, pushing towers with creeps, getting Pipe of Insight. Like, this is still a really good playstyle. The Aghanim Scepter, being able to suicide creeps and get a mini Chen ult. This is all very good, but I don't see why you can't do that from the 5 position. So that's why I don't rank Chen as a super high tier 4, because it's probably just a better 5. If you have a 5 that is a scaling support, then Chen is better as a 4, I would say. Because Chen doesn't really need to soak up farm. He'll just get it by running at towers and taking enemy jungle and stuff like that. Wind Ranger. So Wind Ranger got a base damage buff, which you'd think isn't significant, but when I was talking to Bruno at TI, he basically said to me, he's like, oh yeah, people totally underestimate these base damage buffs and these, +1 strength, these, small stat buffs make a bigger difference in terms of the win rate rather than these like crazy reworks. It's like, oh, Weaver gets 2 Sakuchi charges now. Like, that has less of an impact than the stat changes. It's just the stat changes are a little bit more boring, so people don't focus on those. But Wind Ranger, like, she's one of the most annoying, prolific, just sit there and right-click the fuck out of you heroes in the game. So base damage on her, she just sits there trading with you with Wind Run. Like, of course that's going to be good in the laning stage. Which 4 position you want to win the lane for your core. Io, I don't think Io got any changes recently. Basically, it's just that, like, Mech is a good item, Pipe is a good item, Holy Locket is a good item, Wraith Pact has fallen off. Io didn't really pick up the Wraith Pact, but people are still going for these 5-man group up, like, utility items. So I think that's a part of why Io is strong, and also there are decent combos with Io, like Ursa is getting picked, Sven is getting picked, Legion is getting picked. People are going Octarine Core and Legion, which is crazy, but very strong. And so it's like Io just fits in the meta, but it's like a 4.5. That's why this is not a higher tier heroes, because I feel like it's more leaning towards the 5 position. It's just you might play it in the off lane. Enchantress. So people are playing the puppy style of Enchantress, and it's funny, he's a 5 position because he gets more farm than most cores do on this hero. Basically, you take a creep, you run into the enemy jungle, you sit in front of their face, farming their camps, so your team is not losing farm by you doing this, and then you get a Dragonlance. Puppy will sometimes even get a Midas. You eventually get to a Hurricane Pike. You can blink, Hurricane Pike people, and kill them from full HP. It's really ridiculous. Or get the Aghanim Scepter and be a kind of slow play late game carry in team fights. There's a lot you can do with this hero, but basically all the time you're going to be scaling. And so she's a decent 4. Dawnbreaker, I think Dawn has been good. She has one of the strongest level 2 timings in Dota. The hammer nerf where the range on it got nerfed is just not super significant because you're already playing in people's face. Like Necrophos or Death Prophet or any of these ranged offlaners, Dawnbreaker can be a really great just sit in front of these heroes in the lane and tank for them and stun for them. She's also really good against like Faceless Void and Enigma, any hero that you can just like turn the fight on one of their ultimates. But of course, as a support, you're going to be first picking, so you won't always see that. Coddle, he got a base damage buff. He's also a hero that likes to right click people and like trade effectively in the laning stage. His W reduces the magic resistance on your opponents by a little bit more than what it did before. Unfortunately, Caudle is not at the point he was where he was getting null talismans and one-shotting waves because they don't give spell amp anymore. But these other minor buffs that he's gotten, it feels like he is definitely quite viable. Earth Spirit. This is a C tier hero. I feel like I know I'm probably gonna end up saying this a lot. In a vacuum, I think I said this about Sky already. In a vacuum, Earth Spirit is actually pretty good, but it's what he does in the fights that makes him bad. He goes in face first and just gets in there and pops all of his shit on people and then doesn't kill them because of pipe being a thing and because of mech being overpowered and strong. Earth Spirit's all in, and this is a meta where if you all in, you fucking die. So Earth Spirit just kind of goes in and feeds, but in a vacuum, he's good. Okay, B tier, we have Snapfire. Ever since they changed her Ag Shard, where it gives you the extended cookie hop, and you're also getting the little Mortimer's Kiss on it, she's able to farm her creep wave full to 0 without even going onto the creep wave, which is insane because you just cookie the range creep. She does damage outside of her ultimate now with that as well. You just have to pair with somebody. She has a lot of utility because she has stuns, she has slows, she has minus armor, she can scale into an eventual right clicker, which I think is really important actually for 4 positions, which we'll talk about more later. And then her ultimate, you can full to 0 heroes with just 1 stun on your team. And having a hero that's able to do that is always incredibly valuable. It's like half the reason Sky even exists as a hero is that you never lack damage. And Snapfire is the same, just on a longer cooldown. Techie, speaking of never lacking damage, this hero, you go the Ethereal Blade build, you jump in, you F-Blade somebody so they can't attack, you put down 3 mines. If you're good at this hero, it's pretty fucking insane. It's crazy. The combo with this hero is nuts. The Aghanim Scepter is actually good now. I see a lot of people picking it up. The laning is quite good because of Suicide. I just think that it's a specialty hero is all. But of course, if you're a Techies player, I always say this, like Techies players, they don't listen anyway. They don't give a shit what I say about their hero. They're going to play it anyway. So that's kind of useless to even have it in here. Shadow Shaman. So this hero has the 2nd highest base damage in the game next to Treant Protector, who's also B tier. The meta is a 5-man meta for sure, and Serpent Wards are really good for that. His nukes and his stuns are definitely good for that, but also there is a little bit of split pushing going on because sometimes the enemy team will pick up 2 BKBs and you're still waiting for yours, or they pick up their pipe and you're waiting for yours. And in those periods where they're split pushing in order to try to farm those 5-man items, you can pick them off with the instant stun of Shadow Shaman. So basically, Shadow Shaman is Lion, except he's good at 5-manning. Marcy. Owie2000 said this hero was still good, so I trust him, but the win rate went down pretty significantly with the cast range nerf on her jump. So, yeah, she's definitely still good, but she was S tier before, and the nerfs made her B tier. Okay, Monkey King. This is what I was referring to when I said I'll talk about later heroes that can scale into the late game from 4 position. So I think a lot of people at TI were looking at Katomi on Tiny when he would go for this build where he'd go Blink Dagger, Force Staff, maybe Yule Scepter, and then go for Aghanim Scepter Daedalus on support Tiny. It's like there are basically these heroes in Dota that can go support early game builds, and then eventually their build turns into a carry build without griefing the game. And the support trend right now is that most supports are building scaling items. Even 5s are scaling. They're getting BKBs and stuff if they can. Nobody's really poverty mode now. If it happens, you've kind of fucked up the game. And so a lot of the 4 positions that are being picked are heroes that can build scaling items. And Monkey King is great at that. You get Orb of Corrosion. People are going Diffusal Blade into Scotty and basically playing to have this utility slow in the ult and jumping on people and sticking on them, killing backliners. Monkey King does that. Speaking of scaling, Spirit Breaker is a very solid hero. The big change with him recently, and people only recently noticed this, I think, is that the cast point on his charge was decreased from 0.3 to 0.1, which is a big reason why the Aghanim Scepter was so good before. And when this hero was OP, everybody was rushing Aghanim Scepter. It was like Phase Boots, Shadow Blade, Aghanim Scepter. So now people are doing that build, but not going for the Aghanim Scepter because they're like, well, we have the instant cast point anyway. And Spirit Breaker, he feels really solid because of that. You basically get the Ags for free now. I feel like you can play him as a frontliner in a lane with like a Razor, Death Prophet, these offlaners that can now be picked because the Wraith Pact meta has changed, and now it's more about the pipe, and these heroes like building pipes, so Spiritbreaker frontlining for them is very strong. He's decent in team fights because he has stuns, their BKB piercing, their AoE, and then you scale by going for this like Shadow Blade, Yasha, and Kaya build in the late game, and it's quite insane. Treant Protector. So Tree, his Leech Seed got giga buffed. It's now got this insane cast range. The damage has always been incredible. People were maxing it beforehand and experimenting with that. It feels like you put it on somebody and everybody around them just gets like healed to full HP. It's really difficult to fight into a Tree currently. His Overgrowth also, the damage on it got buffed. And these are enough damage buffs where it just feels like Tree is just killing people from full to zero now. And I think Tree was already pretty decent before. And with that being said, also towers are really difficult to kill. And it's like you throw this hero on top with the armor, and it's like, Jesus Christ, good luck ending a game. Silencer, actually, these last 3 B tier heroes, I should say, are all 5 positions that I think are just so good of heroes that they're like S tier 5s, and because of that, they're just B tier supports, like, or 4 positions, like they have to be in here. Like Silencer, I think the big thing with Silencer that makes him so OP right now is that Arcane Curse with the Veil of Discord is such a strong ability where like you need to get items to purge it, but then you can't use that purge on the global silence. So it's like Silencer before, it used to be like you get purges to purge the global, and then it's like, oh, he's useless now. Now it's not like that. Like you need a lot of purges to deal with Silencer, like more than it feels like you can get. It's so fucking annoying. Crystal Maiden, maybe it's because of the Wolf Arcana that came out, but people were really spamming the hell out of this hero for many months now. TI, we saw this hero was quite strong. Huge win rate, 81% win rate. Her ult does a lot of damage. Her Aghanim Shard is incredible. It gives more damage to her ult and allows her to run around in it. You should try Wolf Bite plus CM ult. It's pretty insane and hilarious. Her nukes are amazing for laning. She has infinite mana because of her aura. Frostbite is like one of the best disables in the game, mainly because of its uptime. Yeah, CM feels incredibly solid, but once again, maybe it's the Arcana effect. A tier, we have Pango. So basically, I think this hero is just OP in general, and so he's good in every role. Pun intended. And basically, what happens is like you lane with a ranged hero, ideally, that is good at laning, because Pango's not that good at laning. He's kind of a nuke and just a body. And if you're playing with a hero that's not good at laning, you can just cut the wave, and you just desperately try to get through laning phase, and then you become Rolling Thunder. And that's like, Rolling Thunder is a good hero, guys. Let me tell you, it's fucking insane. You cannot lose team fights with Rolling Thunder, it feels like. Unless you're Rubik, who can steal it. Rubik, very solid hero. This hero also exists in that same sphere that Pango does. Rubik did exist in it, which is the sphere of, I suck at laning, but once I get out of lane, I'm insane. Rubik has 4 seconds cooldown on his ult, now at max level. Built in, that used to be the Aghanim Scepter, and it was strong. Now the Ags makes it so that you can steal 2 abilities. So the hero has some of the most insane potential combos that you can pull off in the game. But now he got a plus base damage buff on a hero that sucked ass at laning and sits there and right-clicks and trades with people. So his laning is actually decent now. And then outside of laning, he's like one of the best heroes in Dota, if you're good at it. Clockwork, so he didn't get changed recently, or at least not in the most recent patch, but the one before that, he got a mana cost reduction on all of his abilities, basically, which he desperately needed. His Aghanim Scepter has been super strong for a long time. What people are doing is they get the Ags and they basically just spam Rocket Flare across the map, gain a ton of vision, do a ton of damage, cut creep waves and stuff like that. I even had a guy in my pub, it was a high-rated pub, he was playing against a lot of heroes that could get out of the cogs, and so what he did is he got an Ags, and then he got a Hex, and he just ran around the map scouting with the flares and setting up on people by hooking them, cog knocking them back, and then hexing them, and by the time the Hex would wear off, we would be there to follow up, and it felt pretty incredible. Earthshaker, so this hero exists in a weird space where prior to TI, he was getting picked up a lot and had an incredible win rate in pubs. And then at TI, he had a bad win rate and nobody wanted to pick it. And Team Spirit, I remember they did their exit interview and they were like, yeah, we practiced with this in like every single game. And then it just wasn't being picked at TI. So we kind of got fucked. Now the same players that weren't picking it at TI are picking it in pubs. So I don't really fully understand how or why that happened, other than a lot of the meta just changed, and maybe it's because like Earthshaker and Clockwork and these melee heroes are better with the Death Prophets, the Razors, and these heroes are more viable with the Wraith Pack being nerfed. But in any case, Earthshaker's win rate's very high. People are picking it. They're going Aghanim Shard, Mana Boots rather than the Blink Dagger Rush, so they're actually useful in the game before the Blink Dagger, and it feels really solid. Hoodwink, people are playing to get the Boomerang and then the Aghanim Scepter and then Ethereal Blade and one-shotting people. I was Necrophos, and this fucker came up to me, and I accidentally pressed Ghost Shroud because I panicked, and she bushwhacked me, and I got almost one-shot by the thing. And I say almost, I died, but the bushwhack, you know, technically doesn't count as a one-shot, but I died. It was very sad. So that's what people are doing with this hero, and it's quite toxic. Nyx Assassin. So I think there's a few heroes that are good with Nyx right now that are being picked. There's like the Invokers, there's the Dawnbreakers, where you can set up for them. There's also heroes I think that Nyx is good against. Heroes like CM, you can just walk in and press Carapace and cancel her ult and kill her. Enigma, you can also do that to him. Ember Spirit, like Carapace is very strong right now. The stun duration on his Q is also very strong because of the talent that you get on that. But yeah, Nyx has been solid. It feels like he always comes into the meta when the heroes he counters are in the meta, and they are. So he's good. Dark Willow, she got a pretty big buff to her Bramble. So basically her Bramble, it spawns almost twice as fast now, and it does additional damage as you level it up on each tick of the Bramble maze. So she just kind of shits out damage now, and considering that Bramble also affects her Ag Shard, which was already good, because it spawns Brambles, it basically means this hero got buffed in a lot more than just her Q ability, because the Aghanim Shard also got buffed. So Willow's solid. Okay, here we have the S tier. So a couple of these are kind of boring. Tusk was already broken, and he still is. He did not get changed in the last patch. He's arguably the best ganking support currently for like running at the mid lane and killing some pathetic Shadow Fiend or Sniper, which also are in the safe lane, which, you know, no shock there that Tusk is strong. If he's the best at killing those heroes, then they're both safe laners and mid laners, because you just snowball and then ice shards them in and kill them. It's also very good to pair with these ranged heroes that are being picked as off laners. Right now, the Death Prophets, the Razors. Tiny also in the same boat there. Tiny, they reduce the radius on his Avalanche by quite a lot in the early levels, and then a bit in the later levels. And I gotta say, like, I realized one of the big reasons why Tiny is so strong is because, well, not only is his laning good now, because Tree Grab is just broken, and nobody can beat a Tree Grab Tiny in lane. He gets like 5 denies per creep wave, or 5 denies in last hits, which is insane. But when you jump in and you Avatoss somebody and then throw a tree at them, you just hide behind the Avalanche and like run away where the enemy team is like, the Avalanche is between you and the enemy team, and you run away from them. So they have to run through the Avalanche to get you. So because of that, you can jump in, Avatoss, walk out, jump in, re-engage, Avatoss, walk out. And if you play it right, like, there's no reason to ever get caught by the enemy team. And that's still true. That's still true with how this hero plays. And that is inherently fucking strong, especially because, you know, you can do all of this crazy stuff with the tossback repositioning mechanic of Tiny. And it's like, people would suck ass at laning on this hero. It was a bad laning hero, and it was still considered a broken support. Now, because people are going Tree Grab and going stat items in the lane, he's actually good at laning, and then also has this ridiculous late game. Mirana, we're skipping Ricky for now because I want to talk about him last. Mirana, she can always win lanes. She's pretty much the best range right-clicking support, and the reason she can always win lanes is because worst case, you just arrow creeps. Her ulti, it saves your team oftentimes because the enemy team just doesn't have detection. And I don't even mean like, oh, you know, in noob pubs, people don't have detection. Legit, like, cores can't afford to have the slots to have detection because they need so much shit now. They've got Falcon Blades and raindrops and stuff like that. So they don't want to use the slot for Dust, but they have to against Mirana. So yeah, a lot of the time you can save people with the ult. You can use it to like run in and basically smoke and kill the enemies, and it's got a super low cooldown, and now it gives evasion with the talent. She scales incredibly well. People are going for Yule Scepter into Aghanim Scepter build and playing as like a spellcaster on Mirana. She's super solid. Ricky, this hero is the current terror of pubs in every region. Basically, you get a Wraith Band, You run into the laning stage or an Orb of Venom. You blink strike somebody. You have incredible base stats. You have good base armor. You have great base regen. I think it's the best in the game. Good base damage. People can't trade with you. Your blink strike actually slows people, so you're not totally useless before you get to your Aghanim Shard. It feels like the Smoke Cloud, once you level it up, has 100% uptime, and that's because it almost does with the talent. You have huge mischance. You're always silenced. He's multiple slowing people into the Smoke Cloud because you have 2 charges on the blink strike, and now it has this slow attached to it. And then once you get the dart, the sleeping dart, it feels like you have to play the game totally differently against a Riki, because in fights, he's basically doing what Brewmaster does, which he throws somebody up in the whirlwind. You just sleeping dart somebody, and then they can't fight, and they have to get purges for it, but even it's on such a low cooldown, and you can't purge the Smoke Cloud, so purges feel bad against Riki. It's this very weird scenario to deal with. And even outside of fights, you use it to set up on people, and because you just have this invis guy running around who doesn't need to farm, it's like you never know what's a setup and what's not. You have to play so differently against Riki, and it feels like there aren't enough sentries to deal with him. And the gem cooldown is too long to deal with Riki. It's so annoying to deal with this hero. I'm seeing people in pro-level pubs right now pick up like a 12-minute gem or something against Riki, because they're like, we cannot deal with this hero with sentries. We need a gem. And they just try to play really fucking safe against this hero. And I actually see, like, I think, you know, Spirit Breaker being strong and Clockwork being strong and Nyx Assassin being strong, like, I think quite a few of these heroes that are in the high tiers of 4 position that weren't before counter invis heroes. They counter the Bounty Hunter and the Riki that are trending in pubs right now. So it doesn't surprise me that their win rates have gone up significantly, at least in pro level pubs. But anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.